Okay, I guess this is going to work. Hello, I figured that I'm gonna go ahead and do myself a stream. Um, have some different career things happening, and because of that, I have a little bit more free time than I normally would. So I figured since I'm already down here painting and whatnot, to kind of recenter myself, I'd go ahead and stream a little bit today. I don't know how long I'm going to stream or how long I'm going to feel up for it. I'm not even sure how much talking I'm going to try and do, but I am going to give this a shot. So what we're looking at today is I've been working on upgrading, enhancing my Mortarion paint job, which I did a long time ago when I first got the Mini, and I like how it looked, but at the same time I know I've gotten better and I would like to give him a lot more contrast. So I've also changed my camera positioning to something that is a lot more out of the way. So I've gone ahead and kind of redone his paint job, so there's a lot more contrast, there's a lot more brightness on him, and a lot more darkness on him, which hopefully will stand out a lot better. And I'm gonna go ahead and... I don't even know how I did that. Did I airbrush him? Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and continue working on this to try and really bring out some of the colors, and possibly touching up his face just a smidge, because while I do like how it looks, I feel like I could do a little better. So what I'm probably going to do right now is work on the metallic bits, because he's got a decent amount of trim on him that I initially just kind of went over with, I think, a copper color that then got turned into something else. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over with a non-metallic metal and make more of his trim stand out, because it got dry brushed with like an off-white, and that really brought it down. And then I accidentally ended up painting over a lot of it as I was going through and working on the armor. And so there's still some parts I want to touch up, but that'll have to happen later while I go ahead and mess around with some of the other bits. So I think that's what I'm going to do today. And to start off, I'm using kind of the same tutorial that I used when I first did Typhus, and it requires a color that I don't have called Hull Red. So I'm going to go ahead and mix some red and brown and black together to try and get a decently dark, dark off-reddish magenta, I guess. Maroon. Maroon's the right color. And I'll use that. Actually, what I probably should do is go back over with a darker brown and hit all that, so that way it has that really deep shadow to go off of, and then I can move into the Hull Red analog. So I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. I'm going to give that a shot. Hopefully the audio and the camera and the connection will all keep up. So we'll just have to see, I suppose. But in the meantime, let's just do our best, shall we? What I think I need to do is I have a flat brown that I've been using, and I also have like a darker brown. But I think I'm just about out of the darker brown. So I'm probably going to need to go to a hobby shop and buy another dark brown that I can use. Because what I've got, it doesn't really work too well. It does what it's supposed to do, but nothing great. So, I suppose, let's go ahead and get started. Let's hit some of this stuff with a nice dark brown. And hopefully, because of how I've got the camera set up now, it will no longer be a problem with being out of focus, or just in general, me being worried about covering things up or not being able to see anything. Because that's been kind of my biggest problem since I got some new lighting this new lighting situation. What kind of paint do I use? I generally use Vallejo. I really like Vallejo. I think that they've got really good pigmentation. And I tend to waffle back and forth between their model line, which is like more flat colors, and their actually, one moment, let me check. Because, yeah, their model color and their game color. So like the flat brown I'm using is Vallejo Model Color Flat Brown, and you can usually tell because they've got a more nondescript packaging because it's more meant for you know, like historical models. And then they have what's called their game color, which is a lot richer and a lot more vibrant because it's meant to go on like wargaming and fantasy models. But I've also read recently that Vallejo got acquired by like a venture capital company. And that news always scares me because those companies tend to be all about the bottom line and making as much profit as possible, which, you know, tends to mean that the quality of their product is going to go down as they try and squeeze as much profit as possible. But I've also heard that this same company tends to leave intellectual properties that they've acquired alone. So we'll have to see. Oh, and yeah, good afternoon. It's about 1 o'clock where I am. So yes, it would be afternoon. Okay, hopefully, this is a new camera setup, so I'm not sure how the lighting and focus are working. But, I think it's okay, based on what I'm seeing in the camera. Because it's broad enough that you can kind of see exactly what I'm doing, but also, still sharp enough that you, that me moving it around doesn't matter much. Yeah, no, I really like Vallejo. They've been my go-to brand of paint for most of the time that I've been miniature painting. It wasn't until very recently that I started experimenting with like scale 75, and a hobby shop nearby just recently got 2 thin coats, and gosh, I can't remember the name of the other company, Pro Acryl, and I have been curious about both of those. But unfortunately, with how I store my paints, the Pro Acryl line wouldn't fit in my current hobby setup for transport. So, as much as I want to try and buy Pro Acryl, I'm kind of reticent to do so. Hey, Mommy Dova, how's it going? I have yet another day where I am not at my current job. And so I am using this time to continue working on Mortarion, who I have decided to repaint in the style of the Typhus that I was so proud of, because I really love that contrasting look. Yeah, you want to try them as well? I've heard Pro Acryl is really good. I've heard their titanium white is the best white in the business. So I'm really anxious to give that a try. But at the same time, I carry everything in like a little... Evening, Red, how's it going? Hopefully things are going a little better for you than they were the last time we were talking. I'm having a little bit of like... a shake-up with my career, so I'm able to stream a little earlier than I normally am. Okay. Your stream title is still the Grey Knight Commission? Oh, that shouldn't happen. I forgot to hit done, I guess. Well, there we go. I updated it. I'll just have to relabel it when it finishes, when I finish with the stream. Yeah, I managed to get 2 Grey Knight Commissions done in the span of time since I last streamed. Which feels a little weak, but, you know. I'm doing what I can. I hope, especially now that I might end up having a little more time, that I can stream a little more regularly. And I know I've been saying that all year, or for the last, like, 3 months. But, a large stress issue has kind of been alleviated. And hopefully that means I will have more motivation and more energy to actually stream. Let's see. Let's go ahead and get the metal trim down here. This guy is all going to have non-metallic metal trim. Since he is a big old display model, he's going to kind of be the thing I can show people to be like, if you want display quality, this is what you're going to get. Had a game today at Element Games on Saturday, won my very first game of 40k, played first game of Old World, and won by default. Very cool, congratulations. I have yet to actually sit down and play a, I don't want to call it a sanctioned game, but like a real in-store game of 10th edition 40k. So how do you like it? How'd you enjoy Warhammer 40k? Because when I first started, I was always really daunted by just the complexity of the game and the rules and whatnot, and just trying to get situated. And then I actually played it, and I was like, oh, this game is complicated, but it's far more approachable than I thought it was going to be. And that was a huge relief, and really made me dive into the whole thing a whole lot more than I ever thought I would. And then, of course, as you guys are aware, I fell in love with the painting, and here I am. So, hopefully, I'm glad the game went well. I hope you got to use some of those custom prints that we've managed to get done together. Because seeing your Space Bear army, your Space Viking Space Bear army would be really cool. But yeah, unfortunately, I think the speed of my painting is going to have to slow down quite a bit, because while he is a large model, I'm having to hold him very awkwardly, and it's messing with my ability to see something, so I'm having to go very slow and deliberately across this guy. Bit awkward, but can tell you the truth, learning Old World was a lot easier for some reason. You've only played your second game recently with the new Crow. Great game. Yeah, I'm glad that went well for you, because at this point, Mommy Dova, you now have, even though I've been in this hobby longer than you, you now have more wins in 10th edition 40k than I do. And I've never played Old World, though I remember people saying that that the Old World was, you know, the original Warhammer Fantasy was a great game, and they were really upset that it went. And so I would assume that the game is good, because if I remember right, the issue just became the high barrier to entry, and kind of the community being, like, not super great to new people. So I'm glad that you were able to have a lot of fun with it. Yeah, I'd love to get some, an Old World set of minis and paint those up, because as I've gotten more into the hobby, I've realized Warhammer Fantasy just has an amazingly cool aesthetic. And it'd be really cool to be able to paint some of those dudes. It's more narrative. That's great too. That's the one thing I absolutely detest about Warhammer 40k, and I wish Games Workshop would do a better job of emphasizing the disparity, is that I don't really care about competitive. I like the idea of narrative games where you can make your army very army themed, and the objectives that you can get will really fit to that, as opposed to being about, you know, min-maxing your army. So hopefully I'll be able to play some games like that, and I'll have a lot of fun. I do know that they have, like, narrative campaigns, and that's something I'd like to set up, but once again, the issue of time and stress has been too much for me. So who knows? Maybe things will change in the not-so-distant future. Just ordered the last bit of stuff for your 2K army. Game has got me in a chokehold. Yeah. Tell me about it. Drago is about ready to lead a 10-man Terminator squad. That is going to be the biggest hassle to try and get off the board. And, you know, kudos to you for running it. At least with the Space Marines, the regular Space Marines, the Codex compliant Space Marines, Terminators are just stupid durable. And they just represent, like, an immediately scary threat to anyone on the board. So, a lot of both. Stress and no time. Yeah. Hey, Motorhead, how's it going? Yeah, unfortunately, I've been in kind of a situation with my job where I haven't been able to go very much because of what I'm finding out is severe anxiety, which is triggering severe nausea responses, which is then triggering severe vomiting. So, after kind of a long and hard discussion, a long, detailed, thorough discussion with my wife and a couple of therapists and my friends, I'm basically moving on from that career. I do teaching with today's kids. Actually, that's not the thing. The biggest issue hasn't been the kids. I've reached kind of some parity with them, and they're not terrible. I think, though, that I'm feeling increasingly powerless, and it's not necessarily a kids these days. They've got the apothecary to bring one back. Good lord. That sounds so awful to go against, but I don't mean that in like a cheese way. That just Seems like such a daunting unit to have to overcome. But yeah, I don't mean in like a kids these days, etc. thing, because, you know, they're kids. They can only respond to the environment they're raised in. But it just feels more and more like I'm doing absolutely nothing by teaching them. And between that and a bunch of other stuff, I think my body just kind of told me, nope, you're done. You need to find some other career path. I don't mind fighting Terminators. My Exalted 8-bound will eat not. That is true. Korn's own Terminator units are a freaking house to deal with. Vomiting Mortarion sounds like Papa Nurgle's wishes. I mean, kinda, yeah. He's trying to get me to accept that I need to move on, and it kinda worked. I didn't tender my letter of resignation or anything today because the administration is being very helpful in helping me transition into something else. But I went and talked to him today, and yeah, so that's... The chapter is rapidly closing on this part of my life. Which is a bit weird for me because, like, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've basically been in the I was using dwarves against the orcs. Oh, that's such a cool sentence to me. Because, don't get me wrong, I love 40k, but, like, at this point, there's such a disparity in factions that they all might as well be made-up words. But the phrase, I fought an army of orcs with my army of dwarves, is just great. I was gobsmacked. The guy set up his orc archers directly facing 2 cannons, and of course you can guess what happened. Threw a gyro bomber over 20 of his squigs and dropped a cluster bomb. 2 were left. Beautiful. Hey Arya, how's it going? Yeah, I painted that typhus that I showed off the last time you were here, and I was so inspired by it that I was like, why don't I make my big centerpiece Mortarion look like that? So I'm going back and I'm repainting Mortarion to look more like that typhus. I really liked that high contrast color scheme he had because it made him pop off the table. And I figure why not do that with the Primarch? So that's kind of what's happening now. And to start it off, I did all of his green armor, like all of his main armor. And now I'm working on doing all of the brassy bronze armor bits on him. And I'm darkening them back down to like a really deep shadow color so that I can do them all in non-metallic metal. And this is going to take me a while. I'm not going to finish this by any means within the streaming period. That looks so epic, thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's something I think I've talked about before, but just... First of all, the model is beautiful. Whoever sculpted this deserves every high five in the world. But having high contrast... Oh, a career change, yeah. No, I didn't... I was saying I didn't tender my letter of resignation today, but I'm basically done teaching. I'm moving on to something else, and I've got a little bit of an idea of where that's going. I've already bought some manuals and signed up for some classes, but it just feels weird to me because I've been in the education system for basically 30 years of my life. You know, I'm going through the public school system and university, and then working as a preschool teacher assistant for a year, and then working at this high school for the last 10. It's gonna feel really weird to me not being on the schedule that I've essentially been on since I was 6 or 5 or whatever. So I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time I'm also obviously a little anxious. But you know, I've got a bunch of friends and I've got my wife, and they've all been incredibly supportive and helpful, so I think it's gonna go okay. And thank you. It's a big move. I hope everything works out great. I'm planning on transitioning into tech, which is really funny, at least to me. It's I'm getting some certifications in some like network security stuff. But first, I obviously have to go through and do the classes and the coursework. And I was looking at the CompTIA textbook I just got. And of course I'm anxious because I've never been trained in a job that wasn't education, or, you know, a service industry job, that like working a Lowe's or something. And I'm wondering what kind of horrifying technical mumbo-jumbo am I going to have to learn. And I opened the book up and it's like, this is how you install RAM on a motherboard. This is how you set up a wireless network. And all I can think of is, I imagine you're still doing something local, you're not moving? No, I am definitely not moving. Hope it works out for you. Thank you. No, I'm not going anywhere. My wife and I both love our house too much. We love the community we're in. It would take an incredible amount of money for me to want to leave Roanoke right now, or an incredibly horrible thing happening locally. But yeah, so I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I've built 2 computers. I'm basically the tech support guy at the job I'm currently at. If it's not something that the actual tech support needs to handle. So it's like, okay, this is all stuff that I understand and I'm somewhat familiar with, but it's also all stuff that I'm not, like, intimately technically familiar with, and I've always wanted to learn more about. So I accidentally stumbled into a career about something that I've yearned to have the knowledge of for at least 15 years. And I think that's going to work out okay. I'm not super worried about it. Obviously, the only thing that's got me a little anxious is just knowing that, if I do, you know, end my contract early, that means I don't have a source of income coming in for, like, the next few months while I train up in this one. But we'll figure that out. We've already got some plans and whatnot. Yeah, it ended up working out really nicely, and it's all because one of the other teachers, when I was helping her work through her tech issues, and mentioning that I wanted to get out of teaching, she was like, yeah, you should just work IT. You already do so much to help us that you could just work IT for the school system and keep all those benefits, but also not be stressed out every day by the regular rigors of a school teacher job. It's like, ow, that makes sense. So if I end up getting hired and this ends up working out, I gotta get her, like, a gift card to some restaurant that hasn't closed down yet. Or something, I don't know. What I do need to do, though, is I can't wait to see what the next color is going to look like on this guy, because right now, maybe have some more time to paint. For a little while, yes, because while I'm not teaching and while I'm not doing my studying, I'm basically home, so I don't have a commute anymore. And that should give me more time to sit down and do things like streaming and painting. But what I'm really most excited about right now is that since all of this is going to be this high contrast bronze, I can't wait to see what this is going to look like once I get my next layer on. I need to announce when I'm going live. Yeah, I do. I do it on my own Discord, but I don't do it on any other place. I used to do it on, like, social media, but I've basically dropped off Twitter because I can't deal with some of the people that are being platformed on Twitter. I don't want to share a virtual space with them. So, I'll figure it out. In the meantime, this guy's real brown now. Oh man, he's gonna look so good when I finish. Oh my goodness, his backpack. His backpack I just hit with, like, a metallic paint and then muddied it up with some Agrax Earthshade. But now, it's gonna explode with color because he's gonna go into, like, I'm gonna go into, like, an orangey red for these pipes. And for his backpack. So this is going to look great when it's done. And if need be, I can drop some more Nurgle's Rot on it, like I did right here. The only song I was on because you were watching another friend of yours? Well, I apologize. I will get better at it. Maybe. Hopefully. Though I do like this kind of color that I've got going on here. I'll figure this out. It's going to go ahead and go back to this dirty, ugly brown, and then we'll build it back up. That's gonna be the plan. But yeah, I wasn't even sure how long or what I was gonna stream, because I'm obviously feeling some kind of way about how today went, but now that now that I've started, I'm definitely feeling a little better. Looks like I'll have to keep throwing commissions your way, Magnus, soon. As soon as you're ready. I have been looking forward to painting Magnus ever since I saw the model like 5 years ago. And I was going to buy it for myself with some money whenever I got it. But if you have a Magnus that you want me to paint, I will gladly and willingly do so. Because that way I don't have to spend $1 million to buy myself a Magnus. And I still get the joy of painting him. So it's a win-win. Okay. I forgot I put so much Nurgle's Rot on this guy's backpack to have, like, a slime effect. And don't get me wrong, I think it looks good, but it's really muffing up my paint, my ability to hit the paint. There we go, that'll have to do. I think for the rest of it, for like the, I don't think I want to hit those. I think they look okay. I might dry brush them with something, but I think they're okay for what they are right now. One moment. Now I'm back. Okay. You have an itch to have a go at Alariel. You have to assemble, but the weather says no priming. It sounds to me like you need to get yourself an airbrush. Because that's what I've been doing. Like, Mommy Dova is local, and they had a bit of a struggle priming their minis. And they tried to do it on a day where it was very cold, and between that and just kind of general learning curve of priming, they ended up filling in all of the poor minis, like, spots, or you know, whatever you call them, low spots. And so I had to strip the thing down, and well, didn't have to, I volunteered to strip the thing down and reprime it with an airbrush, and that all worked wonderfully. No place for setup. That is the worst part. And that is something that always makes me really sad, because there are so many great things you can have to enhance your hobby and just, you know, make life a whole lot easier. But then it's like, oh yeah, you need a garage to do that. So, sorry for making that suggestion. They do make really cheap airbrushers that have like a portable compressor attached to them that are so small you can basically fit them in your pocket. And if you have that and a cardboard box, you basically have a spray booth. And that's been one of my favorite things about it. In fact, I have one that I really don't use anymore. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. You could probably get her primed today. You primed a Screamer Killer and a Neurolictor, and they were okay. That is true. I don't know how warm or cold it is there. It really got me wanting an airbrush. Just gotta find out the best place. In your case, Mommy Dova, you want to, there's one on Amazon that's like $60. It's 38 and cloudy. Oof. It's in the mid 40s here. But yeah, there's one called a Yofu with a portable compressor. Let me get it real quick since we're talking about it. We can talk about airbrushes for a second. This is what the box looked like, a YF Yofu. It's some Chinese dropship company, I think. This was one that was specifically done or advertised or whatever on, what the heck is it called? On Ninjon's thing. But it comes with this little portable compressor. And it charges via a USB, and so mine's probably dead. But it also comes with this is the airbrush itself, and it's a double action airbrush, which is great, and it has a removable cup, so you can have one like this size, or you can have one of these two, which are clearly bigger, and it has the I apologize, I'm stumbling right now. It has you know, this bit right here for charging, and I'm almost positive it came with a hose. But I could also be wrong. I seem to have misplaced the hose. I might have lent it to a friend. But even if you don't have a hose, you can just screw it into this, and while it will be a little heavier, it'll work fine. I don't think this... Oh, it has a charge. And so now, it works. Yeah, you can get them on Amazon. Some of them are better than others. This one purports to do 30 PSI, and it's lying. I think it's doing maybe 16, 17 PSI at best, so it's got a fairly weak stream. I will say... Oh, this is an adapter. I will say that you're gonna need to thin the airbrush paint down a decent amount, because it clogs easily. Because you can see its entrance is this tiny little screw hole, and when you attach the cup, which is actually a lovely feature, unfortunately, you can see in there that is a very tiny hole for the paint to go through, and so it tends to clog real easily. The alternative, I'll give you an example. I have a Badger Patriot 105, which is usually like the recommended starter airbrush. The hole for the paint to go through is considerably larger, and this and the compressor were like $300, and obviously that's 5 times as expensive. But if you're just trying to get an airbrush so that you can prime things, then getting that airbrush and then like Vallejo primer for 20 bucks, you spend less than $100. And I think the only other thing you might need is some airbrush thinner, which is like another $20. And you have a decent airbrush setup for really cheap. Now, I wouldn't recommend you try and use it for anything beyond that. You're not going to get any really good, you know, highlights or whatever. But if you're doing zenithal priming, or you're just trying to prime the guy, it's a really, really good system. And I can't recommend it anymore. Like I said, though, the biggest thing is that it's cheap, so maintenance is going to be a little funky. But it's far, far more accessible than just having to buy like a $300 setup, or trying to get like an Iwata Pro in Iwata, which is, you know, like a $400, $500. So I don't know, but it works. You'll actually have a go at zenithal priming. I can show you how to zenithal prime right now. Let me finish painting his scythe. Zenithal priming is just taking a lighter color and putting it on top of the darker base coat. That's it. Because the concept is that it's hitting it's showing where the zenith of the light would hit, which is the very top of the light, right? But yeah, I've got a model I can do that on real quick. If you just let me finish doing this, because I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make this scythe explode with color when I have a chance. But yeah, it's really easy. If you have 2 different colors of spray primer, even with rattle cans, like you have a black and you have a white, then you just spray the entire thing black, and then from the top, from like a high angle, you just spray the top white, and it's supposed to simulate where light would hit it, so that you kind of know where to put your highlights versus where to put, or where to keep the rest of it kind of as a deep base coat. That's all it really is. Yeah, give me a minute. Like I said, just give me a second. I want to finish doing this because I've got the paint ready. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I'm also, just in case you're wondering about equipment, I'm using a beat up Winsor & Newton Series 7 size 1 brush. It's supposed to have a considerably nicer tip than what I've got right now, but I was not kind to this brush, and so the tip bristles have kind of disappeared, and it's left me with a brush that has great paint retention, but it doesn't do a very good job with holding a tip or holding a point. And, you know, that's super important when you're doing precision painting. So I'm kind of just using this as a base coat brush now. Okay, we're gonna hit, yeah, we're gonna hit the rest of that. And I think I mentioned this to you before, Mommy Dova, but as an example of keeping a steady hand, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm not just holding it like this and trying to paint. I've actually got the heel of my hand pressed up against the model holder, the mini holder, the painting handle, that's the word. And I'm doing little flicks of the wrist. So even though it's still not super accurate, my hand is a whole lot steadier. So when I do have to do more precision painting, I can. And if I need to get closer, I can choke up on the paintbrush, and I can really gently glide across the areas that might need it. Okay, so that should be good. I've beat the snot out of your Rosemary and Co. They're so forgiving. They really are. I've never had a Rosemary & Co. brush, but I've heard nothing but good about them, and they're literally a quarter of the cost of Winsor & Newton, so that's probably where I'm gonna go next. Okay, so, actually, these are perfect. My wife bought a St. Celestine, and so this is a St. Celestine Germaine, right? The bodyguard model, and I've already primed her black, and I don't... can we do this? Yeah, you can see she's already primed black. The light is obviously being very flattering to her, and showing a whole bunch of reflection, but she's just a straight prime black. I'm getting the airbrush right now. Too bad they aren't shipping to the US because of some silly ban. From what I understand, it's an animal cruelty thing because of sable brushes. So, you know, it is what it is. I think you can probably get stuff like that on Amazon, but I don't know. But yeah, so I've got that. And what I'm going to do is, to give you an example of how good this can look even with, like, not the most premium product, I'm going to use Apple Barrel matte acrylic paint that my wife bought from Walmart based on this almost 10 years ago. I don't think it's that old, but it is what it is. It's just acrylic paint, right? There's nothing super expensive or fancy about it. So I'm going to shake it up a little bit. Airbrush is working. I don't even need a lot. I'm going to put... That's probably enough right there of acrylic paint. Give me a second. I just got binged for something. Okay, I can do that. And then I'm going to mix in a little bit of this primer. And generally, my understanding is you want about a 1-to-1 mixture, but it doesn't have to be that specific. So, like, I sprayed enough to make it worth my while. And I'm going to take some cheap, crappy makeup brush that I have, that I bought off of Amazon for, like, a bundle for 10. And I'm going to mix it up. So, my understanding, and the thing people keep telling me, is you want it to be the consistency of skim milk. And to me, what that generally means... Oh, I got disconnected, then reconnected, I guess. What that generally means for me is that when I press this up against here, the paint kind of runs down the side so that it's kind of really translucent and watery. Okay. So I did that, and I'm going to put her on a painting handle of some kind. I'm going to test this out real quick. Oh, that's going to be wonderful. Okay, so when you have one of these, an airbrush, you don't want to pull back all the way all the time, because that'll pull the needle too far back and you're going to let out too much paint. So I'm going to have just the slightest pull, just the slightest trigger pull on it, and we're going to look from the top, and I'm just very delicately going to start misting it over with the white that I just put in there. And I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but she's going to eventually start getting almost like a gray kind of overtone on her to represent where the light would hit her. And so, see? Let me see if I can make the light reflect it better, since I've got the camera so much higher right now. And there you go. Let me change the focus on here. Is that better? I can't tell because I don't have my glasses on. But yeah, see, and you can see now... Oops, come on. Focus, focus. Oh, I don't like this. This way? No, too far. This way, yeah. And you can see now she's got some really strong shadow on the top, but if I flip her over... I can do this, I promise. If I flip her over, you can see she's still got some really dark bits because it only covered the high spots on her. And you don't need an airbrush to do that. You can do that with just like a white spray can. But the airbrush gives you a little more control. Okay, and now that that's said, I'm going to go ahead and put Mortarion back on here. I'm going to lay him there. Everything's going to be out of focus for a second. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do the other one. Oh, never mind, I can't. I was trying to do a non-metallic metal experiment on her. Okay. But yeah, that's all zenithal priming is just giving them that layer of shadow, so that or that layer of highlighting via a spray can or an airbrush, so that you have a highlight. I'm going to go ahead and clean out my airbrush real quick. I'll be right back. Now, cleaning out the airbrush, what I do is I actually took a kitty litter container, like one of the plastic tubs, and I cut it open and washed it out thoroughly, and then I just filled it with water to about halfway, so that way I can dunk my airbrush in there and really clean out the cap, the reservoir, because otherwise you'll get paint that gums up the needle, and you're going to make it, and then it's just going to stick in there, and everything's going to become claggy and clogged up. Something else that helps is running either airbrush cleaner or isopropyl alcohol inside the airbrush. It breaks up the paint and kind of cleans out everything. And there you go. And that's kind of all you need to do. The other thing about that is, at least for me, airbrushing allows you to do a lot more painting really quickly. One moment, please. I don't know if you heard any of that because I was pretty far away. But generally what you want to do is you want to have like a jug or a jar or a tub full of water, like big enough for you to kind of move your hands in, so you can dunk this in there and take like a cheap brush and like push around the excess paint, and otherwise it'll dry inside here and the needle will clog. So I have a spray bottle of isopropyl alcohol that I spray in here, and then I kind of take the airbrush needle and I plunge it a few times to really break it up, and then you can just kind of run it back out and then run it with regular water again. Mine's actually really dirty, I need to clean it, but that makes it so that it clears out the chamber, and you should be good. But the beauty for me is that it makes the kind of time-consuming and imprecise parts of painting a whole lot quicker, because when you're doing your base coat, you spend a lot of time trying to make it look pretty, and with an airbrush you can kind of just hit it all with one color and then go back and paint in the trim and go back and paint in the highlights. That way you're not spending a lot of time trying to intricately do all of the individual base coat colors. Like when I first did Mortarion, I'm pretty sure I just took Death Guard green, put it in the airbrush, and just sprayed the entire dude, and then I painted over all of the other colors once I finished doing that. So instead of him taking, 2 to 3 hours to get the base coat on in all the places where I needed it to be in, I was able to just hit him with one base color in like 15 minutes, and then go back and do detail work that I was going to have to do anyway. And that's why I really prefer having the airbrush. Okay, so the next thing I need, since it looks like I got all... No, I didn't get all the browns. I thought I did. When I finish getting all the browns, the next thing is going to be to add some red into this brown so that I can differentiate like the wood brown from the metal copper, right? That's going to be my next goal once I do some of that. Because if you look at him, he's got like this wood stave part to his scythe, and I don't want, and they kind of look like they're the same color right now because they almost are, which is not good. So what I can do is I can differentiate them by really making the metal framing, the metal part of it, into a much darker brown, and then highlighting it back up into a really, really nice bronzy color. And I'll go a different route with the wood handle. So the next thing I need to do, I suppose, is add some red to the brown, and that'll really help. So that's what's going to happen next. Oh dear, I forgot. Oh, there went the air bubble. Okay. My red had an air bubble in it, but just exploded. Got paint everywhere, except for where I need it to be. There we go. Clean that up. And this is where you're going to see me struggle a little bit, because doing non-metallic metal in general is difficult, at least for me. But trying to figure out where all of the right colors and the right lighting goes is kind of an art form that I have yet to really master. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and find all the spots that I think the sun would hit, the light would hit, and just kind of mark it up on the Mini. Right? Just kind of mark up where I think a reflection would hit off of these guys. And I'll be honest, I'm probably going to be wrong on a lot of this just because this is something I've never studied before. This is just me kind of eyeballing it and thinking, where would I see a shine? And my understanding is that if you want to get really good at this, you got to study a lot of metal. You got to look at a lot of metal and see how light reflects off of metal. And I don't have time for that right now. So I'm just gonna, on all the spots that I think look like high points or ridges, I'm just gonna make the assumption that the light is gonna shine off of that. And right now, I'm gonna go back and repaint over this bone stuff later. But right now, my only plan is to do exactly that. And I'll clean it up at some other point. And eventually what's going to happen is I'm going to go over this with brighter and brighter colors leading up to like an orange and I think eventually a yellow. And that's going to look like a metallic reflection. And so we'll see how good this ends up looking by the end of that. So we're going to get that. We're going to hit some of that. Do the same thing over here, and then I'm probably going to go ahead and do that graphic over it again with the texture paste that made it look really slimy. But I'm not sure. I might go back to that, I might not. Same thing here. Same thing here. Same thing there. Just all the way down. And I'll eventually go back over with the bone color and repaint all that, but right now is not the time. Okay. Oh, whoops. That had a ton of water still in the ferrule, so that messed everything up. But yeah, hopefully that was useful, the Zenithal priming stuff. It's a really helpful skill. I used to live by it when I was trying to get stuff done quickly. And now that I'm trying to expand more into more advanced painting techniques, I've kind of gotten away from it. Because I'll just paint on the Zenithal Prime and the highlights. But it was an invaluable technique when I was learning how to batch paint and do things quicker and with slightly more detail. Some of that, hit some of that. There we go, hit that. Put that over there. Hit that. Hit some of that. That. And yeah, that actually ended up looking pretty okay. Not bad for someone who doesn't really know what they're doing. Okay. Now, I guess, and you can kind of see the red highlights starting to show up. Those will get warmer and warmer. It's only kind of a lie. I'm really running off of intuition right now. I don't really fully understand this stuff. I understand it enough to feel like I can do it, and that's about where I am. Eventually, though, when I have more time to study and break this stuff down, I'll really start looking at it, and then I'll get really good at it. But of course, I'm comparing myself to, like, competition-winning painters like Sergio Calvo and Richard Gray and the guys who like have made this into an art form and a profession. Okay, let's get rid of that little mark because I don't need a random red mark on his armor. You were not feeling it too? I mean, sometimes that's the best thing you can do, I feel, because you know, when you think about it too much, you start double clutching and you start double guessing yourself. But if you're running off of feel, you're running off of what you think looks good. And in general, that leads to you getting to experiment more and play with it more. And that's where you really learn, right? At least that's my thought on it. Okay, you. Now, the thing I do think is kind of cool is as I've done this, my muscle memory has gotten better on it. So, like, you just saw me go through those studs. I would have been terrified to move at that speed with them a year ago. But I've gotten to the point now where I've done this so much, it's like standard operation, and I actually feel confident with it. You're your own worst critic. Aren't most good artists their own worst critic? I kind of feel like that. It's like, if you're any kind of artist with any kind of knowledge, you're going to be very, very critical of your own stuff because you know what you want it to look like versus what it's starting to look like, right? And of course, at some point you just got to realize that you're good at this, you know? Because yeah, it does feel right to say, you know, no, it's not good, or no, it's not that great, or whatever, but at the same time, you're not really doing yourself much of a service in doing that. Because if you know enough to criticize it like that, then you obviously know enough to make it look good. That's kind of my feeling. So you don't have to crow to the streets that you're the best artist ever, but you should still take some pride in the fact that you know what you're doing. Okay, this is where things are going to get squirrely. Oh no, I lost chat again. But I did not lose the connection. Yeah, connection issues are still an issue, and that sucks. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry if a disconnecting happens and I'm mid-sentence and you guys lose me. I don't know why the internet's being so screwy. Okay. You can just know that I hate it, and I'm sorry. You're not lost, you're still here? Okay, cool. Yeah, it decided to disconnect from chat again, and I never know if that means that I'm losing chat and that means I'm disconnecting entirely, or if that just means that the internet connection went poopy for a second. Because it normally means, like, I'm about to lose full connection, and that means you guys are going to lose me entirely, and I'm going to have to restart the entire thing. But thankfully, that seems to be happening less and less. Okay. Okay, I'm starting to get these really cool red kind of shadows in here. Red reflections in, like, his feet and the armor. And so what that means for me is that I'm going to have stuff to work off of for the highlights. So even if my highlights end up not being perfect, and this is something else I'm starting to learn, it's not going to matter as much because the whole picture is going to be what the eyes take in. They're not going to look at individual highlights and be like, well, that's not how light is supposed to reflect off of that pauldron. And since this is definitely not a competition piece, I can get away with that kind of stuff. So that is what's going to happen here, is I'm going to go ahead and continue putting these eventual highlights up on the guy. And oh, I didn't get his little scarab on the back of his arm. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because of how big his wingspan is, but he's got a little scarab beetle thing on his left arm that ended up getting fairly covered, so I should go ahead and hit it again so I can bring his scarab beetle legs back out. There we go. There we go. Come on, beetle legs. Just need to hit you and nothing else. And I don't know if you can see it, but like I'm bracing my pinky against the model. That tends to help me stabilize for some really specific painting spots. That worked okay. Okay, back to the magenta room that I made. Because I think this is going to be the whole red that I was supposed to be using, which I probably ought to just buy some at this point. I'm eventually going to buy my Death Guard up again. I sold my Death Guard army because I realized I wasn't having fun playing it and I wasn't enjoying it. But then I remembered that I didn't initially get it because I liked enjoying it. I initially bought my Death Guard army because I like how the models look. So I'm probably going to rebuy into the Death Guard, and I'm probably going to repaint them, but to a much higher standard. So they're kind of in line with my combat patrol. And so, since I'm going to need a lot more of this rotting, whole red, you know, burnished metal look, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for me to actually buy the stuff. Okie doke. Come on, come on, come on, there we go. Of course, I accidentally still had some water in the ferrule. I hate when that happens. I was at least vindicated on that, because Lila Mev did a video of, like, tips and tricks for when you're painting. And something she talked about was getting water in the ferrule of your brush that then drips out and ruins a perfect paint mixture if you've got one. And so what she suggested you do is to just, like, wipe it against your finger or something. And what I've started doing is right after I pull it out of the paint cup and dry it off against the sponge that I use, it'll give it one last whack against the paint cup, and that kind of gets rid of any leftover hanging moisture on it. And so that's been a nice little way to not have that little blob of water completely ruin a perfectly thinned combination of paint that you've got. Perfectly thinned mixture. There's the word I'm looking for. That can go in there. Just going to go over that a little bit. Again, just trying to highlight the high spots. The spots that will reflect the most light. What I think will reflect the most light. There we go. And what I do like is that because he's got so many craggy bits on him, it's kind of a crapshoot. It's like, where do you think the light's going to hit off of? Because it could be literally anywhere. But this bit, I'm just going to paint down. I'm going to have fun repainting his cowl and his shroud, because those are some neat colors I don't get to play with a whole lot. There, 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 there. Get this again, because that ended up being obscenely dark. That again with the red. And you can see, I'm not, this may look like I'm trying to hit some spots precisely, but I'm really not. I'm just kind of spilling the paintbrush over those areas and trying not to get it to spread too far into spaces that I don't want it to be in, like on the green armor. I'm not being super precise with this. The actual precision will come a little bit later when I'm putting on the slightly lighter colors on top of this darker red, because this is just going to end up kind of looking like modeling of the metal to show that light has hit it and it's causing it to reflect in odd ways across it. At least that's the way I'm approaching this. Okay, so I think all of his... Nope, not yet. I forgot about his smokestacks, which again are just going to get hit with a slightly light amount of this red, or this brownish red. Same thing up here. Go off the side, because the light's very rarely ever going to reflect directly off of the very top of the metal. Get it on there. Same thing here, off the side a little bit. Off the side. Try not to stab myself too much more with his shoulder pad. Right here, kind of the same thing. There we go. A little bit on this side. A little bit on that side. A little bit there. And that's about all I can really do there. Unfortunately, I don't know if you saw much of that. Okay, now give me a second. I need to do a reference check. Let's see what this Vigia says is the next thing to do on him, because I think it's adding an orange. Yep, next thing to do is add what's called a Kalahari orange, which I do not have. So I'm going to mix some orange in with the red, darken down the orange a bit, because all I've got is this, like, hurt my eyes red, or orange. It's bright orange, and it truly is a bright orange. It looks like Sunny Delight almost. So we're going to go ahead and change that by adding it back in with some of the much darker red that I already have. But this also means, because I'm going to have to be a little more precise, I think, that I'm going to switch. I don't know how well you can see it, but that's the point on my Winsor & Newton brush. And it's not really a great point. It's almost completely square. So I'm going to switch over to this Games Workshop brush, which has a much finer point, even though I think it's a slightly larger paint or brush size. So hopefully this will all work out okay. Yeah, that might be a little too dark, but that's okay. So now that I've got to be a little more precise, that means I've actually kind of got to pay attention to where I'm placing some of this orange. And that also means I'm probably going to have to do the thing where I'm a lot more deliberate. And I will be honest, this is entirely a crapshoot. I'm just, like, this looks like a good place to put a light source. Okay, and let's get that off there because that was a mistake. Man, got caught with that paint, or that water in the ferrule again. Let's mix you up because I lost all that paint to the water in the ferrule. And kind of the beauty to this is that every new layer is going to be getting smaller and smaller, so the amount of paint I need on every layer is going to decrease tremendously. Hopefully. If I do this right. Okay. There we go. And that's actually really watery. I don't like that. Go back. Fix that a little bit. Put it over there. Where it'll be visible. And you can probably see it's already getting a whole lot brighter. And that's kind of the point. I'm going to want a strong contrast between the darkest shadows and the brightest brights because of the fact that it is a metallic. And metallics don't have as subtle a transition between them as, you know, a natural fabric. And I was kind of able to play that off a little bit on the armor, because the armor's supposed to look rusted and pitted and just in general in bad disrepair. So that was allowed to have a little bit more of a stark a less stark transition, a more gradual transition. But for something that's supposed to be very clearly metallic still, it needs a slightly more deft hand that I am still trying to learn. So for me, non-metallic metal is a couple of things. It's supposed to be a skill flex to show that you're skilled enough to pull it off, because if you do non-metallic metal wrong, it looks really bad. To me, non-metallic metal has a lot in common with, like, pro wrestling. Because when pro wrestling's good, it's an incredibly emotional, transformative experience. But most of the time, pro wrestling is not very good, and then you're just kind of embarrassed to admit you like it. So, that's kind of where non-metallic metal is. If you do a bad job on it, it's kind of embarrassing, and you feel bad that you attempted it. But when you finally get it right, it's like, wow, does that make the model pop? And one of my least favorite criticisms I'm finding about non-metallic metal is people who say, yeah, but it only looks good from one angle. And I disagree wholeheartedly with that. When I first started doing it, I thought that does make sense because it's only supposed to be showing light reflecting from one angle. But the more I've actually messed with it, the more I've realized that it allows you to sell that shot from that angle, though. Like, much better than metallic paints can. So, like, the Typhus model that I have, it really, really sells that light is hitting it from that specific angle, no matter what direction you look at it from. And I think that's a huge benefit because, you know, we don't complain about non-metallic metal in portraits and in classical paintings, even though you're only seeing it sold from the one angle. So why not have that same kind of you know, artistic pop if you have the skill set for it on these minis, because then you can, everyone's always going to try and find the prime angle, right? So once they find it and they see the metallic metal pop the way it does, they're like, wow, that looks awesome. And so if you really want to turn your piece into a statement, or your model into a statement, it does a great job at letting you do that. Of course, that's all contingent on if you want to, because I think with the right touch, metallic paints are just as beautiful, if not more beautiful. I've seen some true metallic metal pieces that made me cry, because, not really cry, but they just made me, you know, speechless, because they were just so pretty. And unfortunately, I'm not quite good enough to do that. I did a little bit of true metallic metal for Mommy Dova's Grey Knights, and I tried to make them look as good as I can, but unfortunately, because I'm still new at it, they weren't up to this. They weren't quite at the level that I was excited about. Mommy Dova was, because they look great, don't get me wrong, but they didn't make my eyes pop in the way that I hoped they would. So hopefully I can continue getting better at painting true metallic metal, so that it will rival any non-metallic metal that I do. Because true metallic metal is its own freaking skill. Okay, so he's starting to look a little more orange, and that's exactly what I want. We want this to have some really good highlights. Some really stark, really good highlights. Oops, he popped right off. That's what I was scared was going to happen. I can do this. Hi-ya. There we go. And now I can get under here. Get some of that just to bring some of it out. And now everything on his main torso is done except for his mouthpiece, which is going to have just a little smattering of it, because I feel like only the really top part right here is going to reflect anything. Okay, get some of that. Give it a little bit on his breathing apparatus to rust that over. Get some of that, hit some of that. Yeah, this is really going to pop when it's done. I'm pretty excited about how this piece is going to look. And from up here. And see, something that I still struggle with that is really important to non-metallic metal is knowing when to stop. Because it always looks like there's not going to be enough enough coverage to make it sell. And my understanding, which of course can be very flawed since I'm still real new at this, is that you want that absence of light. You want those dark spots, because those are what's going to really sell home the light spots on your model and really make it have that really cool reflection going on. So we're going to play with that a little bit as best I can. Because again, this is where I struggle with non-metallic metals. Okay, we're gonna hit that also. That. And actually, since that got up there, we're just gonna do some almost dry brushing in here to hopefully. Is this on screen? Yeah, this is on screen. To hopefully sell the light reflecting off it right about there. And eventually, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do things like the Nurglings that he's got on him and a bunch of other stuff, but this is really a one step at a time piece. Yeah, hit some of that, hit some of that, hit some of that, hit some of that. And again, this is just a mixture of like a bright red and an orange, which is hopefully going to give the presentation, the appearance of like a really burnished rusted over, corroded, like bronze or whatever metallic it is, copper, I don't remember anymore. But the whole point is that I want this to look old and rusted over. And hopefully the high contrast will help with that. Okay, mix together more red and orange. Which it looks like it's going to do. And now this is where I'm going to need to be more precise, because I've clearly sketched out an area that's supposed to have been hit by the lighting. So this isn't going to be as big a spot as I originally had. So that way it looks like the corrosion's a little stronger towards the center of the spot as opposed to being uniform. There we go. Okay. Okay, good. The connection's still keeping. How much longer am I going here? Okay, an hour and 11 minutes. That's not too bad. Same thing. I'm going to try and sketch a little bit more inside where I last filled in to indicate rust and decay. That again to really sell it. Just kind of dry brush it over there. And there you go. Now he's starting to look a little bit more rusted over. He's starting to look a little bit more effed up. And something else that I just read recently that kind of made me rethink my painting skill was I heard a rumor that even like what the heck are they called? The heavy metal team that does all of the Warhammer box art, even their stuff is touched up in digital afterwards. And here I was thinking that they like did all of it, got a really nice, well-composed, well-staged photo done of it, and that was it. And that's why their stuff always looks so good, is just because they were that darn good. And don't get me wrong, the heavy metal team are tremendous painters, but finding out that even their stuff has some alterations to it was really encouraging. It made me feel less bad about adjusting some of the light on some of my photos. I think one of my favorite things has been learning that even if their specific versions of the paint job isn't tenable or isn't obtainable, you can get pretty darn close with some other things, right? With some other techniques. Like, your stuff doesn't have to look exactly like the box art. And I don't know, something about that is just really encouraging. Oh yeah, I need to get this part right here. A little bit of simulated rust over here, a little bit of simulated rust over there. Okay. Oh yeah. Here behind the wings. Oh man. There was a reason I thought about selling this one and then just buying another one and doing it over from scratch. He's got a lot of little bits on him, and I don't know if they're showing through, but I'm doing everything in my power to try and make it look rusted over and to get good highlights on it. So we're gonna hit that over here, get some of that over there. Oh, I forgot to, did I hit those? Okay, yeah, I did. I hit the little barbs on his or little studs on his bracer. Hey AK Former, how's it going? I don't think I've seen you in a while because I haven't been online in a while. The long story short is that I am leaving the world of teaching and pursuing other career opportunities because I can't do it anymore. But what that does mean is, at least for a little while, I'm going to have a little more free time on my hands, so I can stream more, and hopefully my stress levels will also be down, which means I'll feel more like I can stream and I won't feel exhausted all the time. Hey, Juanma Diabolico, nice. Why can't I teach? Just over the last few years, my health has deteriorated as my stress levels have risen. So it's become a thing of like, I can't go into work anymore without having anxiety vomits. And if I can't go to work, then I'm clearly not making a paycheck. So, and I'm not doing them any favors. So it's just become a thing of my body for years. It's been trying to tell me, you need to do something else. And me going, I'm fine. And then my body saying, oh, really? And I've been to I've been to therapy about it. I've gotten some medication for it. None of it seems to be working. So it's really gotten to a point of like, I think I need to move on. I think I need to find another profession. But that's okay. What I'm doing right now is I've had this Mortarion for a couple years now, and I painted him back when I first got him, and I was super proud of him. But as I've gotten better at painting, I've kind of decided that I want to experiment more. I recently painted a typhus model that I am exceedingly proud of because I followed a tutorial online that had some fantastic contrast in the model. And it's encouraged me to want to paint all of my Death Guard character models like that. So, gosh, I don't know if you guys can see it. So, I've decided since Mortarion's kind of like the last big one I got, I should go ahead and take a crack at painting this one in that style. And then as I rebuild my Death Guard army, I can do more characters in this style. Today your mental health is extremely important. I think so. Today my body is also telling me it doesn't like my job. I hate the fact that we gotta live like that. Like, even though I'm going to be gainfully unemployed for a little while as I go through my career transition, I still feel like I'm exceptionally blessed because I've essentially held a government job for a decade. And so I'm in a much better financial situation than a lot of people who have to do this for basically the same reasons. But yeah, I hope that that works out for you. I hope that you don't end up having to go through the same crap I am. If there was any kind of benefit, it was that my boss has dealt with similar issues in her past. And so she was incredibly understanding and wanted to assure me that she was going to do everything in her power to help me transition from this job with as much, I don't know, documentation to prove that I wasn't just abandoning my post, but that it was a medical condition that forced me to leave the field. So that was very encouraging. I had a sit-down talk with my boss today, and she was very supportive. So I'm very happy about that. I mean, to be completely honest, one of the reasons I stuck on as long as I did is when I realized this person was going to be my new boss, I wanted to be there to help the school kind of continue in the upswing, because I've known this lady since she was a hall teacher, and I think she's great, and I thought she was going to be great for the school, and she has been, but at the same time, my body has just kind of been like, you're done. Today, an inmate attacked a doctor, and I hurt my hand while restraining him. So that's why your body doesn't like the job. It sounds more like your body doesn't like being hurt while you're trying to save someone, which is completely understandable. By any chance, do you have an Aikido school near you? The Japanese martial art of Aikido? Because if you do, I cannot recommend enough training in Aikido as a form of restraint. Because while I'm not going to claim that it's like the ultimate martial art or anything, because it's very much not, I feel like Aikido taught me a lot about body mechanics so that I could safely and non-aggressively restrain someone without anyone getting hurt. And the best I can say to that is that I kind of became the guy who broke up fights whenever they were in or near or around the hall that I was in. And it got to a point where students kind of stopped trying to pick fights with each other around my room, because they knew that first of all, they weren't really going to be able to get into it, but secondly, that I was going to restrain them in a way that made them look foolish without hurting them. And the security cam footage would always catch that, and then, you know, that would mean I wasn't liable for any problems, because they wouldn't have any marks or anything on them, because I knew how to restrain them safely. So there was no strangulation, there was no broken limbs, there was no physical, like, attacks. It was just I knew how to hold someone so that they couldn't really wriggle out. and continue creating problems. Czech prison service self-defense is based on Aikido. Oh, first of all, you nailed the spelling. Congratulations. And I'm glad that's the case. Because like I said, I know Aikido has very limited scope with its use, and I really hate that a lot of Aikido schools try and present themselves as practical self-defense, because they're not. But I feel like as a supplementary martial art to something a little more rigorous, Aikido is insanely useful. And doing it slowly and kind of working out the body mechanics is really helpful with teaching someone how to restrain someone else without putting any undue duress on a limb or on their windpipe or anything like that. So I'm really sorry you hurt your hand. I'm sorry that that became an issue. But I'm glad that you accidentally backhand slapped him. Doesn't like that. Whew. Yeah. We don't. Our body doesn't like it. Our bones don't like it when we hit hard things with them. That's why drywall tends to be the mortal enemy of angry kids. Or not drywall, cinder block. That's become one of my least favorite things that I've noticed, is that, unfortunately, a lot of the students at the school I work at, they don't know how to regulate their feelings very well, because they come from an environment where it wasn't well taught, and so when they get frustrated, they'll punch a wall, because they gotta find some way to get that anger out. And 9 times out of 10, they end up breaking their hand because they are hitting cinder block with a half-developed hand. You know what I mean? The European wall. Like a cinder block one, so it's made out of like those big hard cinder blocks. We can't beat prisoners in the Czech Republic. Yeah, we're not supposed to do that in the United States either, and so unfortunately our prison guards, well, actually I take that back, prison guards by and large have a culture of like understanding how you're supposed to treat prisoners, how you're supposed to treat each other, but the joke has always been that the police are not a very reliable source, and that police brutality happens a lot more often than we'd like to admit. So yeah, most likely you were trying to restrain them, or your hand went a certain way, and it just happened to catch them, which is absolutely fair. Okay, so now he's covered in this weird orange kind of like splotchiness. And that's actually going to be real. Oh no, I didn't do a scythe. I was about to say that's going to be a good thing, because I'm going to continue highlighting this up until it, in some places, is like a very dark or very bright yellowy off-white. And that's what's going to really sell the idea that this is a metal and not just a piece of plastic that's got like metal shapes on it. You know what I mean? So I'm going to keep working on it because I completely forgot about the dang scythe. No, I mean, it's always one of those fun things where it's just like, I don't know, there was this movie that came out many years ago, and it was a sequel to not a Ben Stiller, oh my gosh, what's the man, Billy Crystal and Robert De Niro comedy called Analyze This. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but in that movie, Robert De Niro plays a gangster who watches like a father figure get killed in a drive-by. And he's supposed to be like the heir apparent to his father's mafia empire. And so he starts having panic attacks, and he doesn't understand why. And through a series of strange events, he ends up getting into contact with Billy Crystal's character, who's a psychologist and a therapist. And so Billy Crystal's character helps him figure that stuff out, and eventually he ends up going to prison for another thing. And in the second movie, one of his lieutenants, who's kind of an older gentleman that's a little bit simple, comes to his window and is trying to get his attention because Robert De Niro needs help while in prison. And he's like, "So-and-so, I thought you were on trial. What happened?" And he goes, "Well, I got acquitted." He goes, "How so?" And he says, one of the witnesses, or like 3 of the witnesses, backed out of testimony, and the 4th one, well, he unalived himself. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, that's terrible. How did that happen?" "He stabbed himself in the back 5 times and threw himself off a bridge. Very tragic." And so whenever I think of moments where we're clearly not supposed to mistreat someone, it's just like, oh, you hit your head. I'm sorry, I hope you're okay. After you've just slammed their head into a car roof or whatever. That's super tragic. It's not true. It was supposed to be a joke that, like, the mafia got to the guy and offed him before he could testify against the guy, but it was all done in tongue-in-cheek. So yeah, that's the whole bit of the joke. But yeah, those movies are terrible. I liked them a lot as a kid because I liked Robert De Niro, and it was fun watching him not have to be a super serious gangster and get to kind of play on the fact that he spent, you know, 20 years playing that specific role. But as I've gotten older, I've realized, wow, these movies are not good. At one point, he tries to basically plead insanity while he's in prison because he realizes some other rival mafia gang is after him. So he starts just randomly bursting out into West Side Story songs. And again, it's a chance to get it's a chance to watch Robert De Niro be silly before he started taking on more community. Here in my country, we have this idiom for a rough sack, a rough patch. Felt like this is thematic. Yeah, kinda. It's got that same idea behind it, right? Okay. Man, I love learning about other countries. Unfortunately, it takes way too much time and money to get out of the United States, so visiting other countries and learning about them is something reserved primarily for the wealthy. You need to quit slacking, go run some errands, get lunch, so we can get back in time to finish other things before you stream tonight. Okie dokie, well thanks for stopping in. I hope you have a good rest of the day. It doesn't help that you slept till noon. Well, your body obviously needed it, so don't feel bad. Just enjoy that you got the night's sleep, or a good night's sleep. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and hit that with a little more to bring out some more of that rusty color. Gosh, I wish I could sleep until noon. My body has decided I'm not allowed to sleep past 7 o'clock. And then my body has also decided that if I wake up before 9 o'clock, I'm gonna feel awful for the rest of the day. There were kitty color, of course. You plan to visit Estonia and Greece this summer. That's really cool. I hope you have a lot of fun in doing that. You're super excited for the Estonia trip. What in particular excites you about the Estonia trip? What cool stuff do you plan on doing there? And you're glad I catch you today. Best of luck. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day, Arya. Okay. I'm going to be playing Baldur's Gate with my wife this evening, so unfortunately streaming is not going to be something I can catch up on. Okay, I think the next thing I'm going to need is this really bright yellow that I'm actually going to make brighter by adding. So I've got this Vallejo game color. This is Amarillo Dorado, which is gold yellow. I don't actually have a good yellow, so I have to use those. But to get a good pale yellow, I'm going to mix it in with pale sand, which is like my favorite color. Just to see how people live there, and maybe some buildings older than the USA. Yeah, I love that the United States is like, we've got these ancient buildings and yada yada yada. And it's like, no, you don't. There are buildings in Europe that are older than our country. That's really cool. I would love to be able to travel abroad more. I have some I don't know if I'd call them friends because it's more like I watch them on Twitch and I interact with them there. But some people that I'd love to meet in person that live out in Britain. But it's like $3,000 US dollars to go to Britain from where I am. And on top of that, I gotta have money for lodging and everything. So it's like, that's not viable. That's not going to happen. And so that kind of stinks. But, you know, it is what it is. Oh, wow. These originals that I was doing were really, really, really dark. I might have to go back over these with something else. I might have gone just a bit too dark with some of this coloring. Give me a second. I'm going to go ahead and video reference real quick my original tutorial thing. Okay, so he went with Kalahari Orange, and then he started... Oh yeah, he went into like a bright orange, and then from that bright orange, he went into a bright yellow. So I need to go ahead and actually lean into this bright orange, and then I can start doing the tight highlights with the yellow. So that seems fair. Okay, that explains a lot. So let's go ahead and take some of this bright orange here and really hit it, except for in the shadows. Because that's what's going to make this cell as like this bright metallic. And actually, yeah, that looks fantastic. I'm already happy with that. And see, this is something else that I'm trying to get better at, is being able to anticipate colors when you put other colors on top of them. And like getting that nice layering effect. Because I'm not really... near my house, there's a castle that was built in the 14th century. Good God, that's awesome. I had a very... I don't want to call it passing, because that seems like a little too little, but I was really interested in like medieval swordsmanship and like 13th, 14th century swordsmanship when I was in college about 15 years ago. And I had a gentleman who was able to teach me some of it because he had been stationed in Germany where he learned some. And so at one point, we were all just kind of poor college kids who were throwing together stuff that we could afford. But at one point, I had essentially a full kit of armor that was made of a mishmash of eras. And we were doing full contact sparring with blades with rounded edges. And honestly, as I've gotten older, I've realized that's some of the stupidest stuff I've ever done. But it definitely gave me more of appreciation of like European martial arts and European swordsmanship. Though it's not something I do anymore. I didn't have a place for it when I was moving back out of college, so I ended up throwing a lot of it away. I found out much later that the style he was using, we actually talked about this earlier. Oh yeah, you also do sword fight. That's correct. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, so you're right there with me. Except you probably beat my ass because I'm not very good at it. And the thing I found out much later, was a very specifically regional things, because I can't find any other record of what this guy was doing. So yeah. We were doing like, I'll call it a tournament, but not really, because it was mainly us with like our friends and students that were working on it. But a gentleman passed by in this huge pickup truck, and he went to go talk to my teacher, and as it turned out, he had a castle up in the mountains, and he wanted us to like visit the castle in full battle kit so that he could just get some neat pictures of people dressed for the era, in his castle. And unfortunately, nothing ever came of it. But it's just, it always tickles me, because it's like, this man is probably in his 60s or 70s, and he's obviously independently wealthy, and he used that money to make a European-style castle in the United States in the Shenandoah Mountains. And so I feel a lot less bad about my interests. You know what I mean? Because it's like, how can I feel bad about liking the things I do when some guy spent millions of dollars to basically LARP? And I just always found that kind of funny. So yeah, don't ever feel bad about the stuff you do. That's just a PSA for anyone watching this stream, is that as long as you're not hurting anyone, don't feel bad about your hobbies. There's gonna, unfortunately, it's become a thing, especially in the US. I don't know how much it is in other countries to call things cringe or to say that they're, that it's lame that you do thing. But it's like, who cares? Live your life. Enjoy the things you do. Castles are the best way to survive the zombie apocalypse. That is true, but at least in the United States, we have more guns than we do people. And that just intimidates the shit out of me when it comes to the amount of bullets we have for those guns. And that we've got to have a special licensing system for hunting, because people want to shoot and kill invasive species. So I can't imagine that a zombie apocalypse would be too frightening in the US, because whatever crazy militias we have would probably deal with the problem before it became a bigger problem. That's kind of what it boils down to. Or are you referencing the zombie survival guide? I'm not sure. Gun using zombies. Yeah, that is true. If you've ever seen the original Dawn of the Dead, you know how scary that can be. If that happens, then I'm just gonna be done. Like, it's okay. You guys won. I have no fight in me over this. I'm just gonna dig a hole and live in that. Okay, I forgot to do this area underneath around his ankle, so I'm gonna go back and hit that really quick. Proper death guard. Yeah, exactly. Stinky giants with big artillery. All we need to do is find out who we can get to dress up as Mortarion with the big moth wings that's like over 8 feet tall. There's got to be someone like that in the United States. That'll work. Okay, just go back to regular orange so that I can get this slightly brighter look about it. And do kind of the same thing here. And this is where it's getting a little funky for me because I'm starting to have to do really precise brush strokes on really awkward angles of this. So I apologize if this is not making for compelling camera work, or if you can even see what I'm doing. But I can't even see what I'm doing. Okay, let's see if we can get a little bit more here. What's going to have to happen on the toes is to differentiate those a little bit better. I'm going to have to actively get a really bright color and outline these. I guess it would be edge highlighting in that case. Okay, that can go like that. Get a little bit more of that. And now I guess I can move on to the upper body, since I think his lower body is basically done. This is going to become a very dramatic piece when I'm finished with it. Go. There we go. Just taking a bright orange, and actually at this point it's almost thin enough that it's a glaze, but just kind of getting this bright orange and putting it in the spots that I think would get the most light, so that way I can use apparently a very small amount of a pale yellow to address the highlights. Because it looked like what I was doing was going way overboard based on what I just saw in the video. This should be a very sparingly used yellow if I'm trying to go for non-metallic metal highlights, which I guess makes perfect sense. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and this. Go. There we go. Do some edge highlighting there. Do a little bit of that there. And all we're doing is doing these orange highlights to really hit some of that brightness. Yeah, that's looking pretty good, I think. I think I need some more orange. I'm starting to run out. So I'm going to set him down gently. Get some more of the bright orange. There we go. I don't know if I've actually, no, you know what I just thought about that I haven't thought about in a minute? Over the weekend, my wife and I went to go see Godzilla -1 minus color. And I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see either of those things. If you haven't seen Godzilla -1, I strongly suggest you do. If you like monster movies or if you like Godzilla at all, it's really good. And I'm saying that as someone who is not a fan of monster movies and fairly ambivalent to Godzilla. Like, he's neat, but I didn't grow up with Godzilla outside of some of the terrible Hanna-Barbera stuff that happened, so I don't have much of a context for Godzilla. I'm around more friends who are, so I've kind of not had to, because that's not nice to say. I've become more involved in the Godzilla fandom because of that. And so I've seen King of the Monsters, I saw Godzilla vs. Kong, I saw Shin Godzilla, and all those movies were fine. Of them, Shin Godzilla was unequivocally the best. But you're going to go to bed? Have a good evening. Have a good evening. I hope your hand feels better. But Godzilla Minus One is a fine piece of movie making. If you haven't seen it yet, I strongly suggest you do. And if you have the opportunity, watch it in black and white, because I really honestly feel like when they released or did Godzilla Minus One minus color, they shot the film and composed it with the knowledge that they were going to do a black and white version of it, because it's a stunningly composed movie. The shots, the framing, the contrast of color in a lot of the scenes. Godzilla Minus One minus color is beautiful, and it's probably the best movie I've seen in the past year, which admittedly isn't a lot of movies, but it's stunning. It is a stunning, stunning movie to watch. Okay, go ahead and get some of these orange highlights on here. There we go. That's nice and pretty. You didn't look it. There we go. That and something about Japan that I think they do really well. I think they just understand Godzilla better than American studios, because they're able to craft a compelling movie with a very strong human element that you can be genuinely sympathetic for. And I felt like that was shown in spades in Godzilla Minus One. I don't want to spoil any of the movie, so I'm not going to talk too in depth about it. Just that with Shin Godzilla, I was fine with the movie. I thought the characters were fine. They didn't really do anything for me, but I didn't feel like they actively detracted from the movie, and I didn't feel like they were I didn't really care too much about them. They weren't non-entities. They did their job, and it was fine, right? Their struggle enhanced the movie. With Shin Godzilla, or with Godzilla Minus One, I found myself in tears a few times in the theaters because I was so strongly impacted by the principal character's emotional journey and the motivations behind some of the other characters. And in the same breath, when I was watching King of the Monsters, I think it was, I actively cheered when the main lady character died, because I just thought she was annoying and stupid. And yeah, so I can't recommend Godzilla Minus One any more than a human possibly could. And if you can, catch it in black and white. Catch it in this current re-release, because it is a phenomenally composed movie. Okay, so now we need to hit this to get some of that rust across. Some of that decomposition. Yeah, that'll work. That looks really good. That looks really good. I think I can keep the metal parts on here too to add a bit of a contrast, which will be nice. Okay. Oops. No, I have made a mess. I had a problem with that old water in the barrel thing. So we're gonna knock all that off. Get that. I think I'm gonna have to... Right, yeah, okay, it's visible. I'm gonna have to hit some of that. Hit some of that, hit some of that, hit some of that, hit some of that. And again, just kind of filling in with some orange to make a smoother transition between the dark and the light. brighter highlights for this, so that this all doesn't look like a muddy brown. And I mean, I think it's getting there. It's definitely starting to get a little brighter and lighter and looking a whole lot better. If anything, I'm really happy I went back, because originally when I painted him, I highlighted him up from like the dark green up to a really pale, sandy, like warm white green, and it left him looking kind of flat. So I went back earlier yesterday, and redid part of him in yellow, and the yellow seems to have really created a nice visual pop on the highlights of the green. So hopefully that's going to continue carrying across with the rest of this model as other parts of him get their highlights. Okay. And once again, I apologize if I'm not picking a lot of this up from the camera, because this is a new angle for me, and I'm kind of really stuck in on this paint job, so I'm not paying too much attention to what my shots look like. There we go. Next is the tanks, and I think his respirator need to get done. So I think those are going to be the next things I work on. Let's go ahead and hit that with a little bit of... There we go. And again, all I'm doing is getting just a little bit of this orange on here to sell this color transition, this mottled, rusty look. So hopefully it will all land visually. And to be honest, right now I'm using overly thinned bright yellow, because this is not the actual color I want to be using, but in this section, especially around here, what it's going to do for me is, since it's kind of clotting together, is it's going to look like that part of the respirator is suffering from rust issues, and that's exactly what I want. I want it to look like part of it is oxidized and is now rusting over and creating these really ugly marks on the apparatus, right? What time is it? Wow. It's definitely a little later than I thought it was. Okay. So yeah, as I was leaving the office today, I was talking, a couple of students that I taught or teach. One of them I taught last year, and another one of them I teach this year. They saw me as I was walking by, and I recently shaved my head. I had a full head of hair up until a few days ago, when I decided to get rid of it all because it was just becoming too much of a hassle. And so I went from like shoulder length long hair to essentially bald. And they saw me, and one of them has seen me bald before because I shaved my head earlier last year. And so as she's walking by, she notices me and she says, "Hey, so-and-so. Hey, Mr. Benry." And, you know, I just kind of nod at her. And the other student, who looks a little bit shifty-eyed, she's looking at me like she wants to recognize me but doesn't. I speak up and I say, "Hey, so-and-so." And I guess she recognized my voice because she immediately responded with, hey, Mr. Benry." And then, except, you know, my teacher name. And then she paused for a second and went, "Oh my God, you're bald!" And that got me to smile, but I didn't really say anything because I was out the door. And as I'm closing the door behind me, leading to the parking lot, I hear her turn to her other friend and just ask really loudly, "Why he bald?" And that gave me a laugh, because having a high school aged student yell, "Why he bald?" is really funny to me. And right now, that student should actually be in my class. What was my class, I guess, is technically no longer my class. And I suppose is going to be telling all of the other classmates that A, I'm bald, and B, I'm not here today because I'm at home. They don't actually know yet that I'm working my way towards like leaving the profession. So that's going to be something for them to find out over the next couple days. Though I am going to need to go back in and continue getting things ready for the transition, I suppose. Let's see, can I... Let's go ahead and get some of that orange rust on there. There we go. Okay. Get a little bit of the stuff on the back. And again, all I'm really doing, especially at this point, is just kind of like glorified dry brushing, which means I'm going to have to get rid of this brush soon because it's going to lose its tip. But all I'm really doing now... Actually, you know what? Since I am doing something that imprecise, I can go ahead and switch back over to my Winsor & Newton, which is a far less precise brush. Because it will do the job just fine. That way, I'm not wasting yet another expensive brush. We're just going to hit this at this angle to make it look like part of it is corroded over. Same with back here. Just going to hit some of this with the angle to make it look like it's corroded over a bit. And then, I think I've got to go back and hit this, because I haven't hit the scythe with this new layer of a brighter orangey red. So that's going to be next, is just kind of getting a whole bunch of orangey red marks on it to really show that parts of it have rusted over real bad. And like I think I mentioned before, I can afford to be a little sloppy here, because I'm just trying to brighten the color up to transition to the eventual highlight color. There we go. But yeah, no, by and large, I'm pretty happy that I'm leaving, or that I'm transitioning to something else, because I'm tired of being tired. Hopefully the next job won't leave me feeling like this. We're going to go ahead and dot some of that in there, dot some of that in there, dot some of that in there. Hit some of this, so hopefully the rust will show through. Hit some of that. Yeah, this is actually working really nicely, because to be honest, I don't need super precise here. I need it to look mottled and messy. And I think the best way to do that in this case is to have a brush that is holding a little more moisture than I want, and almost making it into like a wash. Because in doing so, it's giving me these nice, bright splotches that are going to dry down. Uh-oh. Okay, there it goes. I'm back. So that it dries down into like this mottled orange, which is exactly what I'm looking for. There we go. Hit some of that, hit some of that. And then, I've mentioned it before, I'm going to go back and touch up the bone ribbing on the spine of the scythe. So I'm not too worried about that right now. Okay, just get some of that nice bright orange on there. Here, on here. Some of it on there, some of it there. A bit there on the back. Here. Yeah, that's all gonna look really good once it finishes drying. And there we go. Check that out. Hopefully now my title has changed so it actually is showing that I'm doing Not in Gray Nights. But yep, I'm working on this Mortarion piece, and right now what I'm gonna need to work on is hitting this highlight color just the right way. And so I'm mixing together a golden yellow with a pale sand to try and make a paler, more approachable yellow that makes for a better transition highlight into the orange. So I'm actually going to mix a little bit of that orange in there. And hopefully this will look okay on some of the higher spots that I'm going to try and hit. Oh yeah, that color's going to work wonderfully. Some of that, some of that, some of that. Some of this. Yeah, see, going up to that bright orange really, really helps with the coloring here. Okay. I think that might still have been a little bit too reddish, but you know what? It'll work for it'll serve the purpose I need it to. And so that's going to be fine. Unfortunate, because that thigh is definitely the one that's going to be most noticeable. So I think I'm going to go back over it with a little. No, actually, that jives. That vibes really well. Okay. And then the next step will be going back over it again with an even brighter yellow, but only in key highlight spots to really show off like the highest point of the highlight, right? That's the plan, at least. And then once I'm done with that, I can start actively trying to hit some of the other stuff, like actually, to be honest, I like the cloak. I might do some highlights on the cloak, but something that I just realized is that's going to cause me to have to remember what colors I originally used on the cloak, which it looks kind of like a magenta, so I'm probably going to have to go find, I think it's the Emperor's Children color, or the, no, that one's too pink. I think this one's actually Pink Horror, and if it is, I'll have to find that color so I can do some highlights. Honestly, I'm a little happy that I managed to get some of this Mortarion painted on camera, because there's going to be a pretty large like difference in the before and after pictures here. Okay, let's go ahead and hit some of these, because these are going to need to stick out. And I'm pretty sure people will be able to tell. I've got some pictures of my Mortarion pre-paint adjustment. And he was a good paint job, like it was solid technically, but he was very dark and undersaturated, so a lot of his bits and features kind of blended into each other, which was obviously not what you want in a Premiere paint job for a centerpiece model. So hopefully, by doing this, he's one of those guys that if you look at it on a table, your eyes are gonna immediately be drawn to the model, and you're gonna want to really look at it. That's kind of the plan, at least. Okay, let's get some of that. So this is where eventually I'm going to need to go in with like a pale yellow and really hit some of these clefts in his boots, so that you can really see like the cracks and whatnot in there, right? At least that's the plan. Okay. Mix more of that orange in with the white and the yellow to make this nice little rich orange. And then we're gonna try and very carefully only hit the high spots under here, because he's kind of tucking his leg in underneath him, so I don't need to make this thing exceptionally bright. And same thing down here, I gotta be careful with this because it's primarily obscured, so I'm gonna have to find a good angle to. That was not a good angle. That was a bad angle. I'm gonna get rid of that. There we go. Control. There we go. There we go for that. Just gonna try and scribble in a highlight, and that will look okay. This will go here. That'll go over the highlight. This will spill down here. That'll go in the highlight. That'll go in the highlight. Come on. There's the highlight there. Let's go ahead and outline the little pitting that he's got on on his shoe, like some of that. And again, this is stuff that you really can't see, but all I'm doing is trying to create little highlights in the shoe so that, again, it pops. When people look at it, they'll have something interesting to look at. Hopefully. And something that's really helping here, at least for me, is doing the edge highlighting all around the boot, because it's giving it some nice, like, sharp distinction from the rest of his foot. And normally what I could do to cheat that is I can just dry brush it a little bit, but unfortunately the crevices aren't deep enough for a dry brush to be super effective, so instead I've got to kind of manually highlight it myself. And yeah, I feel like this part of him could have used with a little bit more shading to transition from that dark orange and like whatever to the lighter color, but I'll work with what I've got. It'll be fine. Okay. Go ahead and hit that. Get some more of this highlight color, knock off the last little bits of that. Oh dear, I'm not very happy with how this is turning out. We've got some pitting right there, so we can highlight that. Yeah, that one's ugly. I don't like that. We're gonna go back and just hit it with a little bit. Whoa. I'm not going to hit it with anything because I just left a huge water puddle in the middle of my wet palette. Again, the worst part is dealing with the water that gets trapped in the ferrule and then sneaks out when you're in the middle of mixing. And you have like the perfect moisture and the perfect mixture of paint to water to whatever else. And then you realize now it's a water puddle. Okay. Take a little bit of this orange and we're going to mix it back up over here. I'm going to run back over what I just hit. We're going to have a better transition from that really dark orangey red into something a lot brighter. And that will hopefully fix that problem I was just having. But in the meantime, I'm going to give that a second to dry. And I'm going to work over here on this little, whatever this tank is. Get a little bit of brightness there, a little bit there. I got nowhere where I can put my hand down so I can have stability. Just a little bit right there. There we go, that'll be fine. And now, let's see. I guess I can go back to this. Mix these three together again because I've kind of lost the plot. Try and get that highlight in there without going too heavy-handed with it. Same thing here. Try to go in here with the highlight without getting too heavy-handed. There we go. There we go. You're looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I gotta do everything from the upper body, because that was all legged. Long-legged sick man is gonna need to have a little bit more done to him. I think I can go up one more level with just kind of a pure yellowy white, and that will really allow some of these highlights to pop. But what needs to happen here is, first of all, I need to bring this down because that was lighting the wrong parts of what I was looking at. But secondly, I need to be a lot more precise with this stuff because it's all starting to blend together. And that's not what I want on his chest armor. I want this all to have some very distinct sharpness to it, so that when you look at it, you don't just see like a rusty belt on him or rusty borders. You can actually see some of the bits of the armor and some of the cool detailing they put on it that you kind of can't see right now because it's all just meshed into one ugly color. So we're going to do a little bit of that the best I can with my limited vision. There we go. Let's see. Can I hit this last bit? Oh, wow. That is lit up a whole lot better. I hope that it's in focus. I don't have my glasses on. And so when I was focusing it in, I tried my best. But honestly, I can't really tell if it's truly in focus or not. Get some of that down there. There we go. I love this new rusted pitted look. It kind of really beats the heck out of the dull metal look that I had on him. And again, just kind of hitting the high spots, giving the pieces a little bit more separation, a little bit more of a highlight and contrast from the other bits to really show some of the sharpness in this model. At some point, I'm going to have to go back and continue painting the Custodes Combat Patrol I have with some of these newfound skills. Well, not newfound, but newly refined skills. Because I tried doing non-metallic metal on them a long time ago, and it turned out. It didn't turn out okay, it didn't turn out bad, it just turned out, right? So I think now that I have a better grip of what I'm doing, it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to go ahead and try and finish those lads and see if I can make them look what I would consider presentable. Because I think this Mortarion is turning out pretty okay. He's not technically perfect, but he's technically Mortarion. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get some of that. Some of that. Some of that. And again, we're just going to kind of go over the spots I've already decorated orange to act like there's more light on top of it. See what we can do about that. Okay, do some of that. And yeah, I think two-toning the gun was a good idea too, because originally it was all just kind of painted one horrifying, ugly color, and it was kind of hard to see the detail in the gun. But now that I've hit it with some of this rust effect, it's definitely got a lot more personality behind it. And that's exactly what I was looking for. I may go back without the camera on and really touch it up to try and bring out some more distinction in it, but I think what I've got going right now is pretty okay. Okay, one of these bug bugs. Yeah, there we go. There we go. And now his gun has a little bit more personality. I think that's pretty okay. Gotta finish doing that arm because I apparently did not. Go ahead here. There. Oh my goodness, the back of the shoulder pad. What am I doing? Make a little bit sharper distinction back here because it's all kind of starting to blend into itself with this weird mosaic, almost like a blanching effect but without the talent. There we go. And a little bit kind of that for the ribbing. Not there. You can't really see the forearm while I'm working on it. That sucks. I don't even know if you'll be able to see the forearm. So what you might have to do is just join the Discord and wait for me to post some pictures on there. Because at that point, you will get a very nice view of all of the work I've done. And then you'll realize that what looks to be actually half decent is just a clever disguise of lighting and poor camera work. There we go. That ends up being a little too yellow for my liking, so we're going to add some more pale sand in there. Mix in the pale sand. Beautiful. Yeah, that ended up being a little bit not as orange as I would have liked it, so we're going to mix back in some of the orange. I'm going to go back, shade it a little bit more. There we go. Nope, I don't like that. I think this might have been a bracer that I forgot to hit last time, or when I did hit it, it wasn't with enough. So, I'm going to clean that up real quick. And hopefully, it'll work out okay. Okay, back into more of a whiter, yellowy orange, which I'm going to use a lot more sparingly. Kind of like that. That feels better. Add a little bit more pale sand into that because it still feels a little too yellowy orange. Something that I'm really bad about with color theory is realizing how much putting one color next to another can change the visual perception of said color. I'm not very good at that. I'd like to get better, but that will require training and research that I honestly don't have time for. So until then, I'm just going to kind of have to work with it as is and hope that it turns out okay. There we go. Yep, that bracer is nice and bright, I think. Okay, let's move that back in, shall we? Then we have his other shoulder, his head, and that last little bit to do. Sketch some of this out because I feel like most of the work is already done. Just trying to give a nice transition between all the different spots. So I really shouldn't need to fill it in like I just accidentally did on the other side. Okay, let's get this a little more precise. Okay, that will... This is just going to end up being lightly dry brushed because all this stuff is not really in direct light. So that will work fine. Same thing kind of here. I'm going to very gently outline it, try and highlight some of the spots that might need it. Uh-oh, I'm starting to lose connection a little more frequently. I keep seeing that I'm getting a new welcome to the chat room, which means that I'm having connection issues. I apologize if those are affecting the chat room. I apologize if it's affecting the video feed. I'm really hoping that I don't look into this video in the post-processing and suddenly notice that I've got like 8 different copies of it because it disconnected then reconnected 5 times. But I suppose we will find out when everything is said and done. There we go. Okay. A little bit more orange. I think that brilliant yellow is going to be needed for like the last step, but not necessarily for now. So we're going to hit that. We're going to hit that. Hit these because apparently I forgot to. Oh no, that was my phone telling me I've got some alerts. I wonder if that's my boss trying to explain to me what my next steps are. I'll look it up in a minute when I'm done doing this bit, because I think, honestly, once I finish with these last little bits, like when I finish doing these highlights and this specific layer of of the copper, I will go ahead and call it. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I never went beyond the original dark brown for his knuckles on this side. That is not a good look. So we're going to go ahead and hit that now with an orangey red. And then do it again for a little bit more justification right there. And now we're going to go as full on into orange as possible. Hit it again with a little bit more finesse. And then add this into the gold, white, yellowy, orangey color that I have. And again, hit it with as much finesse as my hands can carry. Rinse that off. And then go back into the yellowy, pale sandy orange that I was using, which is now almost a yellowy. Now we're just going to touch it in certain spots to sell that it is bright. And we're going to do the same over here. Just a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. And that is going to be hunky-dory A-okay. Hit some of that, hit some of that. Oh my goodness, I forgot about this scythe. Okay, I'm gonna have to hit that. So the scythe, the respirator, the backpack, and then I'm gonna call him done for today. Because I've been working on him now for, golly gee, only about 2 hours and it looks this good? I guess about 2 hours. But so far, he looks pretty okay. And I'm down for that. Some of that. There we go. Just a little bit there. And a little bit there. A little bit there. Just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. We're just hitting it just a little bit to give the idea of rot. Okay, a little bit up here, right there, a little bit there. Actually, I think I've gotten away from the precision stuff I need to do, and I can go back to my Winsor & Newton brush, and we can just kind of gently, not precisely, dry brush it on. Because at this point, especially with what this brush can do for me, essentially a glorified dry brushing moment. Winsor & Newton makes some high quality bristles that make that all functional. Okay, right up here, same kind of deal. Just gonna hit that a little bit, nothing too expansive. Same over here, hit a little bit over here. A little bit of that. There we go. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Hopefully this is all on camera. Hopefully I haven't moved this too far away. Oh, nope, it froze. Even worse. Oh no! The camera froze. But I didn't, which means a connection was lost, is my assumption? Let's see, did I lose connection to Camo Studio? Because if I did... Oh no, did I lose connection to Camo Studio? Because it's all frozen and stuff. Yep, looks like... Oh, there we go. I still have connection to Camo Studio, but it's no longer connecting properly to the camera and to OBS. So what I think that means is that it's time for me to go. So thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to keep working on him, but probably not during the streaming part. So I will see you guys later. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your evening. And have a good one. Bye-bye.